We going?
Let's go.
Okay, do we know if the volume's up? I got really paranoid
I
about that.
know,
I'm
it's
sorry.
really beautiful.
Okay. Okay, so for my first question is there a way to end racism in school districts such as how school districts are drawn up? Like we talked about in class how
property taxes
property taxes can affect your education. If you come from a quote unquote ritzier neighborhood, your taxes are higher, so therefore you have more resources at your schools. Or if you come from like a poor in this inner city school, your property taxes are lower usually, and then that relates to your education because you don't have all the money towards your school for education.
So how can we stop that from occurring?
Yes, how can we stop it?
I feel like you can get closer to having like less segregated schools and more equal like educations in all of our schools, but I feel like you can never quite get it completely equal, you know?
Somebody said that on Monday when we did that big group discussion with the cards or whatever, or Friday, whenever it was, doesn't matter. With in like these big cities where there's a bunch of different schools in the school district or whatever, if we put all the school districts together, all the property taxes together, send it all to like the major, send it all to this one place, send it all to the one bank, and then have each school district get allocated like the same amount, like divvied out the same, or divvied out based on like how many students you have. Like each student would get, I don't know, let's just say $100 because I'm bad at math. $100 in each, so that each school, if you had 500 kids, you'd get 500 times $100 a kid. I mean, that's like not even right with money wise, but like divvied out based on like how many kids you have versus, well, this school has 97% white, so they come from a ritzier neighborhood, higher taxes, they get more money versus this school with 57% African American students or whatever. Like, so just make it, I think the only way you can ever somehow make it less racist.
I feel
That
like
makes
that could sort of work.
But I don't think it ever go through.
Oh.
But yeah.
Well, as an because we study economy.
Mhm.
One of my professors, he studies if giving more money to schools actually does make a difference and making the education better, and they've shown that it actually doesn't. It's actually the training of the teachers
That would make
and
sense.
the material that's given,
Wow.
and how well the material is presented in class, and how well each student's need is being addressed.
I would have put money on it. That extra money would have just been huge towards it, I guess. But
That's what I thought too, but like I mentioned before,
Yeah.
that North Star and Southwest, they look identical, their resources look identical,
Mhm.
but when you're in the classroom, the education is different.
and what do you think the reason that is? Because of how the teachers are taught, or how their resources? What do you think's a major reason because of?
It's difficult to assess. Like in class, we went over how in North Star, all the AP students were white, and
Okay.
everybody else who wasn't white were in the normal classes.
This is at what school you said?
North Star.
North Star,
It's
okay.
in the north side
Okay,
of town. Wait, what was your question again? Sorry. It's
What-
difficult. It might be race. It might be because a lot of teachers, I don't know. It's kind of hard to
I don't know if you can ever pinpoint an
pinpoint
exact.
that. Yeah.
And if you do, it's gonna change because
Yeah.
everything changes. It's the circle of life. I mean, nothing's guaranteed besides you live and you die. I mean,
So I guess maybe if, in the teacher programs, they would do more sociology. They would give more sociology classes and racism
Sensitivity training, even to know that not that they have to, but that they should be including a diverse amount of people in their programs more so.
Yeah, for sure.
So is the disparity between schools, say they have the same amount of funding or in this different areas, is the disparity within the teachers, or is it just a collective notion from the kids that study there that they're just not good enough, I guess, is what I would say? Does that start at the teachers, you say, or would that start in the neighborhoods?
that's a good point.
It's hard, but also sometimes I think as a teacher, and I think this happens by accident naturally. You tend to gravitate towards students who you think are more like you, right? So if you see a student and they have kind of a similar background as you, you kind of want to mentor them. You see yourself in them,
Yeah.
and so you automatically kind of give them special, more
Mhm.
special,
More of a consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Attention.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Does it ever come down to the fact, I guess, I don't know, where I was going with it wasn't where I wanted to go with it, so I'm just gonna stop ahead of time. Anybody else have anything to add to
Oh
that?
yeah.
I guess, like, North Star and Southwest are all LPS, right? Like, Lincoln Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just don't see how there's such a blatant difference between the education systems. I mean, if it's all under the same public schooling administration and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
then, like he was saying, I think, was it you talking about, like,
Sure.
maybe you, I don't know, one of you was talking about, like, does it come with, like, the teachers or the students or, like,
And-
I guess, how is that line drawn and makes such a big
Yeah.
difference within the schools,
I
if
got-
that makes any sense?
I got a question with this before you answer because you have experience. Do all these schools in Lincoln have the same school board, or is there just one? Is there one school board for all LPS schools, or is there a school board for each school in Lincoln? Or do you know?
I feel like there's one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just
I felt like
LPS,
there's probably
right? Yeah.
all. See, then like we was talking earlier before we were recording, how is there such a disparity then if they're
Yeah.
all governed by the same body essentially? Is it just because of funding?
Or like location maybe,
Yeah.
since like North Star is North Lincoln and that's like proven to be, I guess, a lower economic status part of town compared to like the south.
You give your
maybe?
rebuttal since you have experience with these
Yeah.
two
I
schools.
don't know. It's hard to.
I think my best guess would just be that the students that come from poorer areas are used to, and especially like students of color that come from lower income families that are used to being put down and told that, well, maybe you're just not going to fit in the position that these other kids are going to fit in. They get into that mindset, and that translates back onto their classrooms and onto their teachers, and everyone kind of ends up in this zone where, well, I don't have to force these students to succeed because obviously they don't want to succeed. But the reason they don't want to succeed is because society is holding them back from thinking they're able to.
Here's the thing: is like that is true to a certain point. I don't know, but like
It's all speculation.
I don't think that like. I mean, growing up with like people of color, like I don't think that that's what they exactly think. You know, because like I don't think they. Like I don't think that society directly tells them.
Not directly, but I think a lot of the themes in this class are the indirect consequences. But I haven't had as many, I assume, interactions
Mm-hmm.
as you have.
I feel like
So,
part of it maybe is if I'm a teacher, I just graduated college, I've got my certification. I probably can't go to a school that's in South Lincoln, so I get a job at a school in North Lincoln, and I only am gonna stick around for like 2 or 3 years of experience, and then I'm trying to go somewhere like South Lincoln where
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay for like
Yeah,
20.
that's a good point. Does that come with the fact that did like North Star have a higher teacher turnover rate than Southwest too, or do you? I mean, 'cause how long did you go to either one, if I can ask that?
I went to Southwest my freshman year of high school, and then I went to North Star my sophomore through senior.
Okay, so when you were there for your 3 years, did you feel like they had a high turnover rate of teachers coming in and going out, or
No,
No.
teachers stay there for 10 years. Like, there's this, in Lincoln, there's this view that North Star has all the bad kids and, like, everyone
Mhm.
goes to jail. And that's not true at all. Like, they're actually
Yeah.
really good kids.
See, I don't know if we could, if that'd be part of that because, teachers are turning over all the time. They're getting new ones. Does that make it harder for them to, educate the kids because
Yeah.
curriculum's always changing in that class or whatever? I didn't know if that had.
It's definitely something to consider. I'd wonder how that kind of pattern played out in different school districts.
Mhm.
Those are really fun. Not sure.
Move on to another one, I guess.
Yeah. Sure. What do we got?
Yes, I could read mine probably. It's long, the question's at the end, so just bear with me. So, 8 states currently ban race-based affirmative action at all public universities, and nearly all of these states' universities have responded to the bans by implementing new methods of promoting racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity on campus. Nebraska, being one of these states, has created a financial aid package that offers free tuition on any University of Nebraska campus for all Nebraska residents who are Pell Grant recipients. What is the importance of race-based affirmative action laws within universities, and what can we learn from states that ban these affirmative action laws?
Oh, I love your question.
Thank you. I thought it was pretty garbage, but thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was
I
bad.
already learned something new. I didn't know that we had a ban on affirmative action.
Yeah,
So,
affirmative action
that's an
is
explicit
illegal.
law.
So
Yeah, it's like 8 other states, including like I just found Nebraska was one of them when I googled affirmative action. I
We're
was
a
like,
great state.
make my question over that.
that means Nebraska has said you cannot favor people who are of a group that's been discriminated against.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
clarifying.
That's kind of my question was too with that. So it's saying no matter what race, ethnicity, or whatever, nobody has a hand up. Okay. Yeah.
Everybody equal platform.
Which
Like whoever's like I do. That's what I do appreciate about Nebraska. Is I think that like it's like who has the best qualifications is the one who's gonna get it.
I think that's how it should be
Mm-hmm.
to me.
That's
Yeah.
very. So I'm in the WHT community. It's very prevalent, as you can see.
What's that stand for?
So the Buffett Scholars.
Okay.
It's sorry. It's they call our group, but it's a very diverse population of people that come from all over Nebraska, different income levels, mostly like middle to lower class kids, just with different talents, abilities, interests, stuff that they think they would be able to use to succeed in college. So it's not in any way can you use like race or religion in a sense to get the head up in that program. It's more of just being like judging people on the content of their character, like the people they are and what they're going to be able to do and if they're going to be able to succeed. So in that sense, like it's worked pretty well without affirmative action. Kind of makes you wonder like whether or not it's 100% necessary, because you can see in this program that all these different people have come in and haven't had to, like, we're fighting for the same positions, but there is an equal chance for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
But part of your question addressed that. So there is an affirmative action, but however, university campuses are. Oh dang! I forgot your question.
There we go with that.
I just know that
That's
Nebraska
an
is born as
initiative
the Pell Grant, so like if you qualify for the Pell Grant, you get free tuition.
Yeah.
Like as long as you maintain a certain GPA, I think.
Uh-huh.
But I think some of them were just like other financial aid options and like just other universities taking actions to like kind of reverse the ban on affirmative action. That still, I guess, gives those more needy people a chance, kind of.
I
That's
feel
kind
like
of what I was getting from it.
it tries to put everyone on an equal playing field, and by saying, we're going to take whoever's the most qualified, okay? But if you're somebody who's been systematically oppressed and your family's been systematically oppressed for hundreds of years, then you're not on an equal playing field with everyone else.
Especially, if you look at that from the idea of like Nebraska, which isn't the most diversified of place. So if there's still going to be a whole lot of white people versus minorities, the people who are most qualified, well, if you're pulling from the pool of mostly white students, you're going to end up getting mostly white students, which, like it doesn't mean that those students don't deserve their position, but it means that they just automatically have an advantage over the other ones statistically. What were you going to say? Just some extra information.
And that's why I think it's cool that universities are trying to promote race and ethnicity, like on campuses, and like trying to create like an environment where people can go and like feel comfortable and like talk about their feelings, because not everybody is as open about talking about race in our classroom. So I think that's kind of cool.
I was surprised when I saw that Nebraska had banned it, but then I saw like one of the examples for financial aid was the Pell Grants, and I was like, well, I mean, we're still trying, I guess.
Right.
I had a good question to go along with that, but of course I forget it like everything else. So.
Should we move on to the next one then? Anyone else have any questions, comments?
I think we're good there.
Okay, my question, I'm going to try to read it correctly. Do you think that the additional security a school resource officer adds is worth, like, making undocumented students feel uneasy? Or if a kid gets in a fight in school, we talked about in class, maybe he's going to get charged with, like, assault or something. And is it worth, like, this cop is here to protect the students, but is it worth this guy going to be charged as an adult for aggravated assault when he's an 18-year-old and he got in a fight in high school?
Is it worth the headache percent?
Yeah.
My initial reaction, does it reduce criminality inside the schools? Does it make the students safer? And if in the case it does, which I don't know how to get the statistics for that, but if it does, then I think it's worth a little bit of leeway there. I think if it's going towards keeping the majority of students safe, whereas it might not be exactly the most perfect scenario for some people, I think just going off the idea that the majority should be kept safe and protected from whatever issue is going to arise, and not that one officer is going to be able to stop anything. Like I didn't get, like I was telling you guys with the clear backpacks in Millard South, that's not going to stop school shootings by implementing that in one school. Putting metal detectors in one school isn't going to stop crime in all schools, but it's, they're doing what they can to make a dent essentially, And I think that's what you gotta
If
do.
it can stop one shooting, it's
Yeah.
if it. My thing is, if it can stop one shooting, one person getting hurt, killed, or whatever, it's worth the headache, in my opinion. I understand like that it's causing a lot of these problems and stuff, but like I don't get the point of how these school resources officers are like finding out that these kids are undocumented, or like how that comes up. Like that's why I didn't get that point. Like how do they realize that they're undocumented in
I
school?
don't know.
Because like do they walk around with a sign that says undocumented, or you know what I'm like I don't.
Well, sometimes people harass other people. Like the police
Yeah.
will go like into their classroom if
Okay.
they hear anything, and they'll
See-
they'll bring them in and they'll try and get them to admit it.
See, then I would think if that's the case, you know how it's working. I would think you need to have like, as a school board or as the police office, you know, I don't know. Somehow you'd want to enact like some rules and things that these have to apply by. You're not here to, you know,
Yeah.
enforce this law.
I'm,
You're here to, I don't know. You're here to keep the people safe. Yeah, if like these kids are gonna get in fights, it's how kids
I
act.
wouldn't
Like, I don't know.
mind metal detectors except if they were put in every single school.
Yeah, I
You
guess
get what I'm saying? And they weren't located just
in the,
in like poor schools.
just
Yeah.
at the poor schools. And you know, like, is it the same money from those already poor schools going back into extra security measures? Because that, I feel like that doesn't help as much because you're
Yeah.
just pulling out of the same
Yeah.
pool that you could be using to help those
That's
students.
a good
Oh, I
point.
never thought about that.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that.
and just forcing it back onto them.
Or or is it coming from like somewhere else? You're saying kind of like.
Yeah, because if they could
Yeah.
implement it in all schools, that would just be pulling from the same pool and everyone would still be on the same plane. But if you're forcing these already lower income schools in these worse off areas to implement new measures of their own volition with their own money, then that is just hurting them further.
Yeah,
That's a really
because I assume metal detectors are probably not cheap.
yeah, it's gonna be
And
a
like
ton of money.
security guards and stuff, you have
Yeah.
to pay wages and
Yeah,
benefits, whatever. I don't know how that works.
yeah, maybe they're, or if that's like, or does that come out of just? Because I'm assuming most of them are probably employed by the local police department. I assume. Like
Yeah.
how? 'Cause I
That's
don't.
what we had.
Okay, how was yours at?
I think that it was
Or they,
just
like,
separate.
private or
contract.
something?
Well, I think there's both.
Bro, that's I didn't know. Yeah, because I came from a school we didn't have them. Of course, there were 70 kids in a high school. I mean, 100 something the whole K through senior. I mean, you know, we didn't have this problem. I mean, because we didn't have a lot of kids.
We had the same Omaha police officer assigned for like every year that I was in high school. Like we would one dedicated officer to the school.
I think that's what we had too.
And we were in a nice area too. That was the extent of our security. Except you had to, you could only get in the doors through certain times. You couldn't get in the side doors, stuff like that. Just normal, what I assume was normal security measures. We never had to go through metal detectors or extra security like that. I mean, they'd yell at you if you were doing something stupid, but that's about
Yeah,
it.
we didn't get the buzz-in doors until my senior year, and we found out like.
You guys
yeah,
had
we-
a buzz doors?
We have those.
We
Yeah.
didn't get those until our senior year in our school, and we're all like, "What is going on?"
I know, right?
Like we'd show up to school late, we'd leave doors open so we could run out to our vehicles and grab
Right, get walked
grab
out.
something. And you'd have buzz in,
Snitching on
and
yourself.
the secretary's like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I'll just go home."
Really? That's crazy.
Did you guys? You didn't have like the buzz in doors or anything?
I don't
Not
think
that
so.
I know of.
You
But,
guys
like,
could just
you
walk
couldn't
into your
enter
school.
the side doors. In my school, you couldn't enter the side. Like, they were locked. Like, once you left them.
So you had, like,
they
your
were
main
locked. So you had
doors.
to always enter.
That's
through.
But
crazy.
did your main doors have like the buzz in, or were they just open?
There's
You
always
could
a
just
security
walk
guard
in.
there.
Oh, see, because we didn't have the security guards, and
Yeah.
We had
And-
security on the buzz doors.
and our buzz-in doors were like our school's kind of set up a little weird. Like our buzz-in doors, there's nobody there. Like like no offices right there, so you can come in pretty easy.
I'm okay. So I was confused about how I don't know if this is relevant, but how undocumented students or how undocumented children get into institutional education facilities.
Because they don't check for your citizenship.
They don't.
No. And plus, like, their parent, like, undocumented immigrants pay taxes. Like,
Right.
they deserve.
What was your
Well, I'm not.
question? What was
It's
your-
not whether or not they deserve. Like I totally understand. Everyone should have an education, but I was just wondering how that process
What was your
works.
point
They
of your
don't
question
check.
again? I didn't to get to high schools. You're saying? Or,
Just in any school. I didn't know that they didn't check for status or anything.
No, they don't. They used to actually, like, 10 years ago, they never, I mean, not like 10 years ago, like 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, they never checked.
Okay.
But it's, like, really scary for, like, little kids because, like, sometimes, like, if they, like, go, because, you know, I feel like, this is a whole different
They don't know they're doing anything wrong.
Different tangents.
Well, I mean, it's, like, on the same thing, but, like, I feel like it's not, like, I mean, I've talked to, well, this is more personal for like everybody, but I feel like if you talk to different people here in Nebraska, like everybody says like, you know, they got hit like once or twice by their parent, you know, like they got spanked.
Yeah.
You know, like once or twice.
I know.
That's why I don't like Apple
computers.
20 minutes.
Like, I'm not saying that's like the right way. I mean, things are changing now, but like I think it happens wherever, you know. It doesn't matter what the class race or
Yeah.
whatever that is. And like I feel really bad because like there's so many cases like in my school where like children, like when their parents were undocumented, like sometimes they would mention it in school, and then like, you know, teachers are required to report that to the police.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so like that like gave like there was a chance that like their parents might have been deported for that
Okay, yeah.
when like the kid didn't know the extent to what they were like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we can tie this kind of to how we're talking about, like, with the school resource officer. Like, I don't know. I think when you're at home, like, a lot of how you act in school comes from how you're raised. I mean, there's nothing to do with if your parents are legal or illegal or whatever. I mean, I think it comes with the fact that, like, if you're taught to respect elders and people, like, I think that if we, like, I was taught to respect my elders and all that, and if I screwed up as a kid, I got swatted, and I mean, you learn quick. And I think it comes to the fact that, like, if you have school race, I don't know, like, maybe it needs to come to the fact that, like, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, going off of that, again, can't speak for all minorities or lower class people, but if you are taught that they're not going to respect you, you're not going to respect them back, and I think that might play a factor in people who are disparaged, you know.
Well, I have a question. So do you think that there's any way that our political system can change the property taxes so that
It could,
Yes, but how?
but will it?
will
Everything can be changed,
Right.
but I don't know how. I don't think you could ever draw a consensus on a correct way to do it,
Yeah.
because money is key in politics. I mean, there's
Right.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you have money, you have politics. So if you're voting for I don't know, it'd have to be how the legislation is drawn up, of course.
So then do you think that it would be to the universities preparing teachers to focus more like their curriculum on a more inclusive basis?
I don't know. 'Cause it just depends on
So that
depends on the college you go to, of course, too. Then, you know, is it a private college that's more, you know, like a Christian based college, or is it a university here where they?
like it depends on
You
what the
know?
university values.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't know how you. I don't know. We need to keep moving.
no, I feel like in terms of that, like institutional values have been changing to shift over a lot to like inclusivity, but it's more, in my opinion, a social change than an institutional one, because you can tell the schools that this is how you have to act, but it's not going to change individual prejudices, which I don't know. Again, I don't know where exactly the disparity line is in the schools where they're not teaching these kids properly. If it is curriculum or if it is social bias of the teachers themselves.
My last thought on this, and we need to move on. I'm gonna make that decision. Is I think, you know, in the LPS system, if you want to have a big change, I think it'd have to come from within the school district itself.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you could draw a big enough consensus from the state of Nebraska, because in my area it wouldn't matter. I mean, we're the only school in our school district.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think you'd have to come from the school district within itself to really make a big change on how they allocate taxes to the schools.
You can't make a big decision based on everything because all these school districts have their own individual
You know, there's too many
differences going on. Yeah, based on like the populations.
Your question. You're next.
Oh, that was my question.
Huh?
That was my
I
question.
was gonna say,
Okay.
how did
Okay, yeah.
taxes?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else we want to say about that, or what was it?
Did we already have that? Oh, my question was, yeah, what do you think that like our political system would change?
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, all I really have to say is it's a social thing that needs to be done at a smaller level rather than the institutions just saying that it has to be one way or the other.
What is your idea of like changing it, or like how? What would you say to the?
Is that
What would I say? If everybody was on board, if there wasn't ifs
Yeah.
and buts.
If it was this or that?
No, yeah, I would as a policymaker, like I'd want to make sure that you, like UNL, because it is a public institution, that like teachers who are getting their certificate here would go through classes and would make sure, I don't know.
More like sociology and more like sensitivity type of stuff, just to make sure that
Yeah,
they're
to
aware
get
of the
more
issues
training.
going on. Because people stay blind to the fact that there is still discrimination, then of course they're not going to
Training.
change.
And also attracting more people of color to be teachers also. So that,
How do you do that though?
Affirmative action.
no, not at all. Like, it's advertising, right? Like, you kind of,
So there's placing the billboards or setting the Facebook messengers in the correct
I mean, let's think about how do
digging.
we like what we like, like how do we pick our majors? I think it's kind of like our background and how
I'd
we
agree.
grow
It
up.
definitely, it's everyone you've ever been involved with shapes the person
There's
you are.
there's usually one thing that's like, that's for sure what I'm doing.
So why not put that more in the curriculums of school? Like, have more like career services oriented
Okay,
for schools,
yeah.
like at an earlier
Or-
age.
or kind of like integrate like into their teachings. Like this week, maybe this kid kind of talks like kind of presents on something they've learned,
Yeah, or be like, hey, what are careers? We should look at more careers in a
like a career day.
because a lot of times in like schools for districts, they don't talk about future careers. They don't talk
Sure.
about college. They don't talk about any of that. So they don't know that that's an option for them.
I think because we force kids to go into their majors so quickly and jump into their careers right away, I think it would be useful to have a more deeply ingrained system of helping people find what they're really interested in, what they're really good at. Like in my opinion, doing away with all the standardized testing and just letting people figure out what they need in life. And I think that would definitely help create more lifelong students, less dropouts, less disparity between the people who are able to succeed.
How do we tell if our schools are working though if we don't have standardized tests?
That's true.
Like, how do we know that they're
Like, what-
learning
but
anything?
I would say
We
like
have to change the definition of what working is, because producing these mindless, like, don't know what they want to do, don't know how to succeed in life, don't know how to get out into the real world, I don't know if that is what I would call working.
I would
That's
say-
a totally different
I would say the
discussion.
testing we need to get rid of. Like I understand like your testing in high school, like your standardized testing, like the maps and that kind of stuff. Like I would think the testing we need to get rid of, like the ACT. Like you need to have an 18 or whatever it is to get into the university. And
Or like
That
basic
stuff
testing,
is
you could do
true.
that.
yeah, like I
But-
would see that part, but
By the time you graduate high school, these are the skills that you've actually like gotta have. And
True.
we do need to test. We gotta make sure you have them.
Yeah.
We're getting way off topic.
There's a difference between. Ooh, never mind. This is a whole different.
It is
It's about standardized testing.
I know, I
like
want to talk
ACT.
about it, but
Now we're getting-
but we are a race in
But, like, how-
education.
I do like tests. Like I personally, for me, like tests like make me like.
I love
work.
I love taking the ACT.
You
It's
know?
fantastic.
I hate
No, not
Yeah,
ACT,
what?
not ACT.
I hated tests in general.
I
The
was
T
so
was
into
But like, I'm
that.
saying, like in
Yeah.
college, like if there weren't tests, like would I actually study?
No, I wouldn't know anything.
Yeah,
I
that's
still
what I'm
don't.
saying.
I'll be honest.
Okay.
Don't listen to that part.
I could talk about testing. What do you
No,
think?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah. How would yeah.
I'm not in education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
But then to tie it back to race, like I'm testing the kids who are in an underprivileged, underfunded district the same as I'm testing people who have got all the money in the world and
Yeah.
can hire tutors and
That's
can hire
true in
all of
study
this
guides
stuff.
and things. That does
Yeah.
make it inherently classist.
Mhm.
Which I hate using that word, but it does make it classist. And the teacher did bring up in class the idea that standardized testing plays on race itself, just in that same way, because it's not about what you've learned in schools, but rather from the background you've come from in a way. I don't know if I have a lot of opinions on that statement, but I know that it was a good statement. I just haven't looked into it very much. Any thoughts on that? when you
Yeah,
said
it's
that?
true because if you come from a Spanish-speaking background, your articles like
Yeah.
on, off, by, like they get confused because in Spanish it's different, and so you can't recognize when it's done wrong. You can't recognize it. So you might be a good writer and you can use English perfectly, but when a question on the ACT asks you what sounds right to you, you
Oh.
can't tell because your parents might speak English not in a great way, so to you it sounds the same.
Yeah.
You can't put
I never
those
thought of
people against native English speakers and be like,
it. Heck, I'm,
look,
an
they're not as good as English at English.
I'm terrible at
Entirely.
English.
36, my English is. Anyway,
Could have taken mine.
Jesus.
all right. Yeah, I could talk about standardized testing all day long. It's terrible.
We're like about 30 minutes right
Okay.
now.
29.
All
Ready
right.
for your question?
I got one more question, and we're gonna blow this up. Okay. So I was reading the I don't know what source it was, Kumazi anyway, It was talking about how early kind of social theories were like dominant white people believed that if they were able to bring minorities, black people especially, into the education system and educate them, let them be literate, then they would come up and take the place of the dominant power. So they had this fear that if they allowed black people an education, they would, kind of take over their place. And do you think that they were right to have that fear, or do you think it was totally unfounded? And do you think there's still a kind of a fear today going on where we think that, if we allow people to come up and take our place, then they're going to push us into oppression or anything like that, even in a subtle way?
I don't know.
I feel like white people have had it good for so long.
Yeah.
And I say we white people. I guess I am a white person, obviously. I'm hoping that I'm not. Also,
Problem with saying we.
yeah. And white people have kept these other people oppressed. I think because at some point somebody figured out like I can use all these other people so that I have a really easy life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if people are still afraid of if everybody's equal, that somebody's going to make me do all the,
It's the cause of separation between people, right? Because I mean, like we learned on like before our first test, it's like you have like the really rich people, and like it's not like how am I gonna say this? I feel like separating people is like a good thing. I mean, like for the rich people. No, never mind. I'm just gonna like.
No,
keep
okay.
going.
For the purpose of the question, put yourself in
And so
the
we
shoes
get
of the racist, in the
separated.
shoes of the rich person.
We get separated when in reality we all go through struggles. It's not like in England, like people didn't get taken advantage of. It's not like white people in New York in the 1900s didn't get taken advantage of by like factories and like children. Like that didn't happen to children. Like we're all like, I think we're all humans and we're all in this together. But like for some reason our society wants to separate us because that's the best way to control us.
Well, and the thing is, when you go
Does that
and
make
you
sense?
Ooh.
when you
Because we're all
acknowledge,
people.
yeah, and when
Some
and
struggles
when
are
these
bigger
people
than
have
others.
to. When these people have to acknowledge that minorities and poor people are people, then they lose their justification for why they deserve to be oppressed. When they realize that we're all just human, they don't have that justification there. Which is why it's so important for dominant populations, in my opinion, to keep the other ones down, which was Marxism, I think.
We're getting really deep. My brain's hurting.
It's I don't know. I think I've heard from certain people that they would say, all this affirmative action, all these equality, they're going to end up pushing us down. But I don't think that it's a very dominant, like obviously you guys didn't have a super strong reaction to it. I don't think it's a dominant value that people hold today, especially in the liberal college populations. But I don't think I don't think people really see minorities uprising as a threat anymore. It's kind of a dead theory.
I think they still do. I can tell you that all my friends who are people of color who are successful, I forgot my point.
So are we just like I'm kind of confused by this question. So are we talking about how like we're afraid that a person of color is gonna take over like a certain profession or certain like
Well,
I don't know how to word it.
yeah,
Is that kind of what we're talking about?
it goes back to a really common dissenting point when it comes to affirmative action, saying that these people who, so in my eyes, in the eyes of the racists, saying that these people don't deserve to come take my position because maybe they're not as smart as me, and if they do come take my position, then I'm going to be the one disparaged, and then it's easier for us to say that they don't deserve to be in these positions because we don't know what will happen when they get in them, when they have that power. It's easier for us as the dominant class to hold that power rather than give any leeway to them.
I think that is definitely still going on because we look at like immigration and we look at like these people want to come here because of all the opportunities, and we're like, don't come here because all this stuff is mine, and if you come over here, you're going to take it, you're going to take my job, or you're going to do whatever, go back to where you came from.
I've thought about that in the ways of immigration, which does make sense. It's kind of a nationalistic thing to say that we deserve to have the power that we have, but honestly, do we?
Does it kind of come down to the fact that you just got to be better, I guess, at whatever you're going to do? I mean, if you're afraid of somebody taking it over, I don't know, maybe it's that wrong to say, but
No,
I mean,
it's
you're always
great
taught
to say.
you're always taught whatever you do it as best as your ability will let you to do it. So like, okay, so me and versus some Joe Schmo from wherever is going to try to offer the same job. I don't care what color he is or what he does on his spare time. I mean, or if I'm hiring for a job, I just want the best person for like.
Yeah.
I don't
that's
care.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that
Like, I want the best person
So
for
why-
this
we've
job.
passed that in a sense.
Like I saw something today in the Nebraska legislature. I don't know what it. I just saw the headline. I was scrolling through on social media and it said there was something about how, something like LGBT, like how you can't like bring it up in like your workplace, like hiring and firing wise. Like I don't see where that's even a problem. Like to me, as like a business owner or something, I just want the best person. I don't care what you do or believe in. I just want the best. Like, is that wrong? Is that kind
That's how society should be, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
I
that's
agree.
what it is. But like it's
you just want the best for your company?
and we just have to stop seeing people as dumb and that, like I don't
Us
know.
and them.
So it'd
Yeah,
be like
us
a form
and
of
them.
biological racism then, like viewing the different races as like inherently
That was definitely
dumber
one.
than us.
Yeah, that was a good way.
When I say us, like
Right.
kind of
Right.
the worst.
Yeah,
But,
I think
I know.
it's fine to just like
People
say how
just
we're
like-
saying it because like we have to look at it and like realize like
Have to
I don't know.
take yourself away from that. in a
What?
way.
I think a part of it is I'm looking for the best candidate for this position. But if the white people have all the resources and the money,
That's true.
then all the candidates I'm going to get are white people.
True.
Mm.
Especially if like higher end jobs or whatever.
So
Touche.
I think, and in a way, you could tie this back to education by putting forth. Do you think that schools are actually targeting people of color, minorities, poor people, to give them worse education, to make sure they can't come up and take our positions? Do you think
Do
that
you-
do you think it's a focused effort, or is it just a pattern that we
I
don't
don't know.
understand?
I feel like it could be both.
Yeah.
Because I feel like racism is just so deeply embedded and rooted into our society and history that
Yeah.
that's one reason. It's just like a pattern. It's always been like that. But then again, I feel like there's always going to be those bigots out there who view biological racism as a thing and think that people of color are just lesser and inferior to whites. They'll just do whatever they can to keep them lower in that position in the schools and job places, whatever you may have it.
I think that whoever they are,
They
but like so long ago when like education was set up and stuff, there was that idea like I'm keeping these people oppressed because they thought that they were inherently better, and now we still have the same, like largely the same system as they set up. So
Yeah,
maybe we don't feel that way anymore, but we're still perpetuating
It's,
that.
it's just systematic now.
Yeah.
So many decades,
But
nothing
it-
changing.
How do you ever change?
It's
I don't know. When it's so
Becoming
deeply
consciously
embedded in your
aware.
history.
Right, it's gotta
And
be
like
enough
having people accept it because
individuals.
there's still so many people who don't want to accept that.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
But there's always going to be those people. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
there's always
yeah.
going to be people that believe so strongly in
But
this
could
and
we
that.
change it through like I don't know, like mainstream media?
I don't know. When
Like
you talk
the-
about social change, I just sort of, well, that'll never happen.
So
yeah.
social change hurts my brain. It's just
Yeah.
it definitely starts in the colleges. I think when you have such a platform to reach out to so many different people.
It seems like it starts in the college, but most of us are liberal in college, and they say like we change.
I came in
after
I came in conservative.
And then, like,
Really?
after we leave, we kind of get a little bit more conservative. That's what like
Yeah.
That's-
I don't know.
And does it come? I
I
don't
don't know. I think it's a dumb distinction to be made either way because people should focus on what issues are important to them.
yeah. Wasn't it like George Washington that said
Yes.
The-
Those political
having-
parties.
yeah, having two parties is going to be like the end of the
Yeah.
country or whatever?
I didn't know that. I'm glad to know that.
You didn't?
Right before
No.
I left office.
I thought that was like common.
Here we
I'm
are.
the worst at history.
Yeah, here we are.
Jeez, you can't get anything
Yeah, I agree. Like,
on the
It is-
Quote Washington: How to end a debate.
yeah. So, do we have anything else to add to this?
Comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm concerned about
Oh,
the
I
education
do.
Yes.
system.
In social change, I do. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to make you guys like feel awkward, but like I do think that we do need to change how white privilege is talked about because I feel like right now in mainstream society, it's as if like you're trying to make people feel guilty for it when
Yeah.
that's not what should be happening at all.
It's
it
a
should
bad
just be
word.
creating like awareness.
Yeah.
And like just the definition of it should be changed. But
When
I
they
don't know.
when they talk about white privilege and like whatever, I mean it is like, oh, you are bad. Like I don't think I did anything like bad. Like
Like it's just important to acknowledge that society has been like that for
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
but that
biggest
not that
thing.
anybody.
people come at me like, oh, liberal fellowship, what do you think? Like, should I feel bad about my white privilege? I'm like, just if you refuse to acknowledge that you have it. I mean, if you acknowledge that you have it, and you acknowledge the steps you're taking to combat that, then it's not bad that you have it, because you have to accept what you're born into, and you have to work to change it if it doesn't work. You know, whatever narrative you're trying to display, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah, that was cool.
Okay.
Social change.
Anybody else?
Social change.
Anybody else?
That's
We're
why I
done.
love Nebraska. We have
Go
the
team.
general system.
Oh,
Yeah, that is nice, isn't it?
It's not like
Yeah, it's not as politically charged. It's, it's